Surprise. I know you're looking forward to Tad, but I have been asked to bring a message to you today. I'm very honored to be able to do that, and I thank you, Tad, for this opportunity. You know, I wasn't nervous prior to Jason's announcements. I didn't realize there was a ranking system. I'm hoping to make at least a top 100. You know, I'm not expecting top 5, okay? I am not expecting top 5, but so we'll see how this goes. I'd like to share with you, and we might have some visitors here, so I am a retired state trooper. I spent 29 years with the state police, and I'd like to share with you probably one of my favorite days. It was January 21st, 2019. It was my 29-year anniversary and the Monday of the start of my last week in the state police. And I was going to do something one last time, is go work the road. My last 6 years, I was a lieutenant, and I pretty much was in the office most of the time running the post. But I wanted to go out and work the road one last time, because being a state trooper, that's where you really enjoyed your job. I loved working the road, interacting with people, both good and bad, and it was a blast. And it just is something that I wanted to experience one last time. So I said, I'm gonna do something that I have never done in my career. I'm gonna go out, and every single traffic stop that I give, I am going to give a warning. I am not going to write a ticket, not one ticket on my last day. So what I ended up doing is this young man here, Trooper Max Prince. I've actually known Max since he was about 4 years old. Him and his dad and I taught in the academy together in the early 90s, and he used to bring him to work every now and then. So I've known Max forever. And then he became a trooper, and he came to my post. And so I told Max, you're going out on patrol with me, and your one sole job is to make sure I don't get killed. Because, you know, you always hear, police officer in his last week of working got killed in the line of duty. Well, luckily I'm here, so he did his job. So we went out on patrol together, and we did traffic stops. And I did not pull anybody over that day that wasn't doing 85 or more. So they're doing 15 plus over the speed limit on I-96, 70 miles an hour. And I'd go up to the car, and I went into my stern mode. Good morning, Lieutenant Mario Gonzalez with the State Police. The reason I stopped you today was for your speed. Do you have any reason why you would be going as fast as you're going today? Of course, you hear all kinds of things. I didn't realize. Are you sure it was me? Are you sure it wasn't the car next to me? I've been doing this a little while. I think I can tell the difference. And so I said, give me your driver's license, registration, insurance, and I went back to the car. When I came back as nice trooper. I said, today's your lucky day. Today is my 29-year anniversary and my last week in the state police. And Friday, I'm turning everything in, hanging up my boots, and heading home. So I'm going to give you a warning today. And the shock in their face. I said, because even throughout my career, it wasn't about writing tickets. It was about changing driving behavior. That's what I wanted to do. And sometimes a ticket was warranted for that, and sometimes a warning was warranted. They really controlled it more than they realized. But I said, you're getting a warning today. And I hope that you remember this next time you get in your car and you're going a little fast, and you remember that lieutenant on his last day said, please, please watch your speed, because I've been to too many accidents where I've seen bodies mangled like nobody should see. I've gone and gave death messages to family members because their driving wasn't good. And so all I want you to do is drive safe. Needless to say, I made a lot of friends that day. I did about 15 traffic stops, but I knew there was going to be one. I just knew there was going to be one that was going to challenge me. So I stopped this car for doing 92. I'll tell you, in my career, I have never given anybody a warning who was doing 90 or more. They may not have gotten written the right amount. I might have given them a break, but they always walked away with a ticket. So but I was going to stick to my guns. Went up there, and it's two ladies, a younger lady driver and an older passenger female. And I start to go into my spiel, but I've noticed that the lady in the passenger seat is looking straight ahead with a scowl on her face. And so I'm talking and said, is there a reason for your speed? You shouldn't be going this fast. She goes, I didn't think I was going that fast. I said, I need to see your driver's license, registration, insurance. So she gets her driver's license, give it to me, and she says, Mom, in the glove box, my insurance and my registration. Mom opens the thing, grabs the stuff. Now, mind you, I do passenger side approaches, so I'm right beside her, and she gives it to her daughter. And then her daughter hands it over to me because she wanted nothing to do with me. She would not even look at me. So I walk back to the car, and the young trooper, what are you going to do, Lieutenant? What are you going to do? You're going to write this one, aren't you? I said, good learning lesson. When you work the road, don't ever let anybody determine what you are going to do. You're in control. So I walk back up there, and I gave my spiel. This is my 29-year anniversary. It's your lucky day. It's the last week of my career, and I'm giving warnings out today. And the mom, she didn't want to glance, but she sort of looked up, and her scowl was kind of gone. And I said, what I'm here is to change driving behaviors. I've been to too many bad accidents, given too many death notifications. My whole goal out here is for you to drive safe. And you got to understand that when you're driving, you are in control of this car, which means you are responsible for the people in this car. And you have precious cargo in your passenger seat. So please make sure you get your mother safe so that she can go see her son. I left out that part. I did ask them, where are you going? Where are you going so fast? She said, I'm taking my mom to see my brother. Thinking brother's in the hospital or something. Where's the brother? In the Ionia State Prison. So a Michigan State trooper probably put him there, and now that's why she didn't want to look at me. But when I gave that warning and I said, you got precious cargo, the mother looked up at me, and my hand was on the door, and she put her hand on mine and says, God bless you. God bless you, and thank you for your service. And I walked away doing what I set out to do, was to give warnings. And this one right here, this was the last traffic stop of the day. Did it to the lady. I said, can you let me do one thing? You mind if my partner takes a picture of me on my last traffic stop ever? And she goes, oh, I would be honored. I would be honored. It's amazing when you're not getting tickets, you're in a great mood and you'll let them do anything. And so that's my last traffic stop that I had in the state police. And what I'd like to talk to you today is about grace. Grace given. Grace is talked a lot about in the Bible. What is it? Christian grace is the unmerited gift of divine favor. In our scripture reading, it says, for it is by grace that you have been saved through faith. And this is not from ourselves. It is a gift from God. They talk a lot about it in the Bible, in the New Testament especially, but you know where they don't talk about it a lot? In the Gospels. You don't hear Jesus talking about grace. Paul says it over 100 times in his letters. But Jesus does something better than talk about it. He shows it. He shows it over and over and over. And he did it right from the beginning of his ministry as he was selecting his apostles. Now, back in that time, rabbis and Pharisees had students that followed them and learned from them. But they didn't choose the way that Jesus did. You see, if I was a student and I had I'd follow these different teachers, Pharisees, and I found someone that I liked, then I would apply so that I could be their students. And then they would, of course, go through those applications. And just like I did in the motorcycle unit, I picked the best of the best. Jesus does it a whole different way. He doesn't ask for applications. He offers invitations as he goes out and selects men that probably no rabbi would select. He goes and he selects fishermen, ordinary people. Peter, of all people. If you read enough about Peter, you know he's open mouth, insert foot kind of guy. He's not your typical student. Matter of fact, in Luke chapter 5, it talks about how Jesus uses his boat to preach from. And then afterwards says, hey, why don't you put down your nets? Now, Andrew, his brother, has already told him, this is the Messiah, but he didn't believe him. And he tells Jesus, we've been out here all night. This isn't going to work. And Jesus says, put down your nets. So he does. And you know the story, they got filled, almost tipping the boat over. And Peter recognizes who he was, the Messiah. And he falls down at his feet and he says, go away from me, Lord, for I am a sinful man. As if Jesus didn't know that. And he tells Peter to follow him. And just in case we didn't get it there, then he really goes past the limits. And he picks Matthew, a tax collector. The lowest of the low, the scum of the earth. He's gone over to the enemy to work for them and give them money. And the only way that he's going to get money is by overtaxing them because he gets the extra. He's turned his back on his people and he is now working for the enemy. And Jesus goes to Matthew and says, follow me. And he does. Then there's the man with leprosy. In Matthew chapter 8 and verse 1, Jesus is just getting done with his sermon. He's coming down. There are people everywhere. And this leper has heard about this Jesus. And when you had leprosy, you were an outcast. You were out of the town. If you go to Leviticus, and if you've ever read Leviticus, I've tried. Not very good at reading that Leviticus stuff. But if you go there, and it will tell you exactly how a leper is supposed to be treated and how a leper is supposed to act. You see, he could not be in the town. He had to be outside the town. He had to have his robe torn and messed up hair. And if anyone came by him, he would have to yell, unclean, unclean. That sounds like fun, right? So him going into the town, he knew that it was not going to be accepted very well, but he had heard about this Jesus and what he was doing and the message that he was giving. And he went. He didn't care. He was going to do everything. And he goes to Jesus and he kneels at his feet. And he says, when he came down from the mountainside, the large crowd followed him. And a man with leprosy came and knelt before him and said, Lord, if you are willing, you can make me clean. He didn't say, I'm really hoping you can make me clean. I've heard some good things about you, and I'm thinking that maybe you could help me. But no, he said, if you're willing. He knew that Jesus could do that. He knew who he was. And then Jesus responds. And before he healed him, I think shows more grace than anything. Because it says, Jesus reached out his hand and touched the man. Before he healed his skin, he healed his heart. He showed compassion because I can't imagine not being able to have physical contact with people. We think COVID was bad. When we couldn't hug and we had to do the elbow thing and couldn't be together. Well, this man, who knows how long he had gone without a human touch, without touching a spouse, without touching a parent, without touching a child, and I can't even imagine this, without touching a grandchild. And what's the first thing Jesus does? Shows him grace and touches him and says, be clean. He says, I am willing, be clean. And immediately his leprosy was gone. And then there's Zacchaeus. Again, to make his point clear. Matthew was bad enough, he was a tax collector. But Zacchaeus, he was a chief tax collector, a very wealthy man. Somebody that you would not want to be around. And in chapter 9, verses 1, Jesus entered Jericho and was passing through, and a man was there by the name of Zacchaeus, and he was a chief tax collector and was wealthy. He wanted to see Jesus, but with being a short man, he could not because of the crowd. So he ran ahead and climbed in a sycamore fig tree to see him, since Jesus was coming this way. When Jesus reached the spot, he looked up and said to him, Zacchaeus, you come down immediately. I must go to your house today. And so he came down, and he went once and welcomed him gladly. Going to somebody's house was something back in those days. Having a meal with them was something. And what happened when Jesus did this? All the people saw this and began to mutter, he has gone to be the guest of a sinner. Because that's who needed his grace. That's who needed his comfort. And he went to Zacchaeus' house. And then in John chapter 8, when the adulterous woman was brought before him, it says, the teachers of the law and the Pharisees brought in a woman caught in adultery. They made her stand before the group and said to Jesus, this woman was caught in the act of adultery. I'm going to stop there for just 1 minute. She was caught in the act of adultery. Where's the guy? Were they that concerned with the sin? Or were they concerned with trying to trap Jesus? Where's the guy? Things that make you go, And now the law says, and in the law of Moses condemns us to stone such a woman. Now what do you say? They were using this question to trap in order that they would have a basis of accusing him. But Jesus bent down and started to write into the ground with his finger, and then they kept on questioning him. And he straightened up and said to him, if one of you is without sin, let him be the first to throw the stone at her. Again, he stooped down and wrote on the ground, and all at this, those who had heard began to walk away, the older ones first, until Jesus was the only one left. Jesus straightened up and asked the woman, where are they? Has no one condemned you? No one, sir, she says, and neither do I condemn you, declared Jesus. Go now and leave your life of sin. I find it very interesting that the older ones left first. You know, when I first became a Christian, some 40 years ago, I was about 18 years old. I had no clue what grace was. Over the years, as I study more and I live more and I sin more, I realize how important grace really is. That there's nothing I can do to get my way into heaven but through the grace that comes from Jesus Christ. Now, I want to make something very clear. When I talked about me giving grace to those people, that's nowhere near the realm of what Jesus did. Nowhere near. Because let me tell you that if as I was going out on the road to work and I told my boss, hey, I'm going to go out and work one last time and I'm going to give everyone grace today, I'm going to give everyone a warning today, he said, okay, great, Mario, but you're going to have to pay the price for their tickets. Guess how many warnings I would have given that day? Here we go, let me count these tickets out that I did today. I didn't know those people. I met them one time in my life. I probably will never see them ever again. And you want me to pay their price? I wish Andrea was here. I've known Andrea for, I hate to say we were in college together 40 years ago. That Andrea is the same person back then that she is today. Always has a smile, always bubbly, always a ray of sunshine. She teaches those kids. She gives you that hug, and she just makes you feel good. And for her, if I pulled her over and they said I had to pay her price, guess what? I could do it very easily. Now, her husband, John, on the other hand, Mr. You want a Buckeye, Mario? I wish John was here too. I hope you watch this. But you know what? I'd pay the price for John too. Because that's my brother in Christ. He's part of my church family. He has to be special because he got Andrea. And I could do that. But for a tax collector, for someone I don't know, that takes a special kind of grace. I know I've felt it. Maybe you've felt it. Maybe you know someone else who's felt it, who says, you know what, there is no way God is ever going to forgive me. All the things that I have done, I keep making mistakes. This book is filled with people who make mistakes over and over and over. You look at David, and when David was brought before Samuel, and he says, this is who you want me to pick? And God says, I don't look at the outside. I look at the inside. And my grace is huge. And David messed up over and over and over, and he's been called a man after God's own heart. God wants us to know just how much he loves us and how much grace there is for us. I'd like to go back to Zacchaeus for 1 minute. You know what I hope? I really hope this. I hope God takes Zacchaeus over to the curtain and opens it up and lets him look down and see all the Bible classrooms and all the VBSs that 2,000 years later are singing about the grace that he received. I bet you he had no clue that that was going to happen. What a great story. And the best story is the next part of that. I wish so bad that I could hear the conversation between verse 7 and verse 8. Because something happened there. They had a meal together, and Jesus spoke to him, and it changed him. As it says in verse 8, but Zacchaeus stood up and said to the Lord, "Look, Lord, here and now I give half of all my possessions to the poor, and if I have cheated anybody out of anything, I will pay back 4 times the amount." You tell me his life wasn't changed by Jesus. And Jesus' response to him was this. Jesus said to him, "Today salvation has come to this house, because of this man too is the son of Abraham. For the Son of Man came to seek and save what was lost." Grace. Grace. That's what he came to do, is to seek and save us, because we were lost. So my question to you, are you living a grace-filled life? Are you excited about that grace that we received from Jesus? The grace that you accepted from him? And can people see that in your life? Like they saw it in Zacchaeus. Can you imagine? The law didn't require 4 times payback. I think it was 1/5. But he was given 4 times. You don't think they said, this sinner who they just were talking about, they said, he's changed. What and how did he change? And so that's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to live a grace-filled life. And if you want any example of it, it's spelled out in Colossians chapter 3, starting in verse 12, where it's pretty clear. Therefore, as God's chosen people, holy and dearly loved, clothe yourself in compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience. Bear with each other and forgive whatever grievance, give grace, you may have against one another. Forgive as the Lord has forgiven. Give grace as the Lord has given grace. And over all of these virtues, put love, which binds them all together in perfect unity. Are you living a grace-filled life? Are you as happy as Zacchaeus was? You should be. We celebrated it today here on Easter Sunday. It was given for us so that we would have a chance for eternal life. If you need any prayers, if you need any help, if you have any questions, we have so many people here who would love to share the message with you. If we can help you in any way, please come as we stand and sing.
Christ will meet you there. He intercedes for